representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
I feel like 2024 is going to be magical.
Hello and welcome to this edition of FOF Live presented by Burger and Hicks. As always, you can check out Burger and Hicks on their website. We'll have their phone number below. Also check it on Instagram, TikTok, everything to get all the information. As you can see, a little bit of a small panel here today, but it will be tons of fun. For my host, Daniel, we have Eli. And, of course, joining us, the notorious, the great, the powerful, Mr. Peter Pratt. Peter, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing well. Great to be on, guys. I like a smaller panel. This is going to be a juicy episode, so it's good to see you guys and good to talk. Looking forward to it.
Well, we do have a man in the field. Kevin Barral is up in Philly for all 4 games of this Marlins versus Philly series, so he will intrude, but a very pleasant intrusion. We'll have him in the middle of the show to show us what it's like in Philly, the return of the Marlins to Citizens Bank Park for the first time since last October. And nothing has changed. 2 playoff teams last year, and surely 2 postseason bound teams yet again, beating up so many familiar faces.
Yep. To start from that, let's talk about the Marlins' recent series against the Kansas City Royals. They fell 2-1, but not without some pretty you could say unexpected pitching performances from 3 starters who at the beginning of the season were not even on the roster, starting with Rodri Munoz, Yoni Chirinos, and Valiente Belloso. 3 guys who combined, I believe, each had at least 5-6 innings apiece of great pitching. Eli, talk to us maybe about these 3 pitchers who seemingly, again, the Marlins lost the series, but it seemed like it wasn't totally out of reach with each one of those pitchers.
Yeah, well, I'd say in the first game, Munoz had a bit of a clunker. He continues to be very confounding, where it's either an awesome performance or a pretty bad one. And this one was actually in the middle because he at least made it through 6 innings, but a few too many walks, 3 home runs. He's one of the highest home run totals allowed in the majors this year, even though he's only been in the majors for about half the season. He's only made 7 starts, but he's allowed 14 home runs so far. And it is something that I'm going to dive into more. If he does it again, we'll find out this weekend. And I imagine there's a quite high probability that he adds to that home run total against the Phillies. But it's kind of head scratching, that guy with his stuff, not just the velocity, the fastball velocity, but good swing and miss secondaries, gets barreled up as often as he does. But that was their demise. He allowed 3 home runs, 3 solo home runs, and that was the difference in the first game. Yoni Chirinos, I think by default, he is the number 2 starter in the Marlins rotation right now, as absolutely humiliating as that is. He's a nice high floor guy. If nothing else, he's going to throw strikes and he's going to pitch to contact, and we'll see where it goes from there. But this was like an example of when things go right for him. He was able to strand quite a few runners. He only had a couple of strikeouts, but he was going against a slumping Royals offense. Peter talked about this on Locked On Marlins. The Royals were not a very convincing offensive team in the series. They had a couple meatballs against Munoz, but they got shut down in that middle game. They were getting shut down in that final game until Huascar Brazoban kind of handed them the game right there. Otherwise, it was, overall, it was a well-pitched series because the last man, Mr. Belloso, making his debut, I'll be the first to admit that I was skeptical of anything going quite right for him in this one, for kind of understandable reasons. He had a 5 ERA in AA. He had a 5+ ERA in AAA. He just was not getting very many outs in the minor leagues, and he does not really have any extraordinary traits in there, but yet he could not have gone off to a better start. It was 5 awesome innings. He had 2 hits, and one of them was a Sun double that it was a pop-up to Vidal Brujan that they, for some reason, did not consider an error. So that was one of 2 hits against Belloso, and after that, he retired everybody he faced through the 5th inning. So it was a great first impression for him. It earned him a second start for sure. That will now come in the series. He's the one guy won't be used this weekend. But yeah, Peter, tell us about Mr. Belloso, your first impression of him, seeing him come out of the blue and dominate.
Yeah, firstly, I had to tip the cap to Paul Severino for getting the pronunciation right. I wasn't quite sure how to pronounce his surname. I'd never heard his name mentioned before, and so it was a surprise to see him. And you can't be discouraged by 5 innings of 2 hit, and one of those, to your point, one of those was not a hit. Like, that's an error every day. I'm sure that must be changed or adjusted down the line. So, 5 innings, no runs, 1 or 2 hit ball. It's incredible. But I was getting flashbacks of Jordan Yamamoto. I must say, like, there was definitely some degree of that where you're kind of looking at this and thinking, ooh, there could be some meatballs down the line here in some sort of capacity. So, the stuff wasn't overpowering. But listen, the story was great. And what I talked about on the show today was just how pumped he was, how emotive he was throughout this whole outing. And I absolutely love that from the pitchers. Like, this guy, he was living and breathing every single out. So were his family. He didn't let them down. He didn't let himself down. He didn't let the Marlins down. He was top draw. So he's going to get a next go, not in this series, obviously, against the Red Sox. So let's see what we've got. And if the Marlins just imagine if they find another pitcher here from a Jacob Amaya DFA situation. They find someone that's usable. Incredible. I had to go and check. I don't know if you guys have done this or not, but I had to go and check and see the current WAR leaders for the Marlins in advance of the show. Just generally, I was intrigued. And who pops up on Baseball Reference? 12th for the Marlins in 2024 WAR. Belloso.
Oh. Wasn't sure
that just sums up 2024 for the Marlins, right? 12th for the Marlins after 5 innings of work. That is incredible for many, many reasons.
Yeah, just crazy there. Peter, also talk to us what you saw from the hitting side for the Marlins. Again, not a lot of runs in total this entire series, maybe from both teams. But what did you see maybe offensively from the Marlins? Did anyone stand out, or is, again, almost an anemic offense when discussing Marlins?
Man, oh man, there's not much really to shout about, right? With 4 runs, I think, combined, right, in across the 3 games. So, yeah, it's been tough. The struggles continue against the lefties. It's historic at this point. Their performance, wins and losses anyway, against left-handed starting pitchers. What is it, 4-24 now, somewhere in that range, 4-25 now, maybe. For a team like the Rays that was so heavy and built everything around platoon splits, for Peter Bendix's first effort around that for a left-handed, short side platoon group to be historically bad is a little bit of a bad indicator. But he's going to be given time and he'll shape this roster, I'm sure. But listen, there's not a lot to shout about around this offense. Up and down it really. For me, Jake Berger, he's the one that's really continued to struggle since that injury. Obviously started the year hot, got hurt, and since the injury just hasn't been able to get anything going at all. Like, we've seen Bell have little surges, we've seen De La Cruz, we've seen Jesus, like the usual pretenders have little hot streaks. But for whatever reason, Jake Berger has been the one that just hasn't been able to kickstart after this injury. So yeah, worrying really. I think it's still, the offense still kind of goes through Jazz unless it's a Sunday. And if it's a Sunday, it goes through Nick Gordon. That's kind of the Marlins offense in 24.
Yeah, I don't think we brought that up on a stream, but his splits, Nick Gordon's, are extraordinary. He has 5 of his 7 home runs on Sundays this season. Obviously not in this series, but the previous one. his OPS on Sundays is well over 1,000, and it's just every other day of the week where he looks like a non-tender candidate. So
Yeah.
it doesn't, unfortunately, you'd rather have more consistency every day of the week rather than having one good day and then 6 bad ones following it one after one. That's a good point about Burger, because when I was around the team 2 weeks ago when they were in New York, one of the storylines was it looked like he was creeping out of his slump, especially against lefties. They brought him here last year to mash lefties. That was his job. That was his number one job last year, was to crush lefties. And then this year, for whatever reason, he has very big reverse platoon splits, and they still have not evened out very much at all. But the reason why I bring that up again is with Beozo, one of the keys I thought to his success is that the Royals didn't use very many lefties themselves against him. Like, he had the platoon advantage against 7 of the 9 hitters that he faced, which is highly unusual. Like, almost every other team makes some sort of adjustment to their lineup to get more lefty sticks in there. And that is why I am very curious to see what he does, assuming he pitches against the Red Sox. If you look at the Red Sox lineup, like, their top 4 guys are all lefties back to back to back to back. So that's going to be a more true test about whether he has a deep enough pitch mix to actually get through all types of major league hitters. I'm skeptical. I'm still very skeptical about Beozo, who it's just the difference with Yamamoto. What made Yamamoto actually kind of interesting early on is that he did have this really nasty slider that he could actually get strikeouts with. And with Beozo, I just don't know what his path is to getting strikeouts at the big league level. But like I said, this was exceeded everybody's expectations in his first outing. I didn't realize he was fluent in English. That was really refreshing to hear in his post-game interview. He's from Mexico, but he's fluent in English as well. Yeah, I'm rooting for him. It was and it was great to see his family around him for that particular outing. Yeah, those are the few things we grasp for. It very much reminds me of 2019 and Isan Diaz and his family being all loud and active when he got called up. But yeah, those things are always a positive to have, because it means so much just to make it there in the first place, regardless of how long you stick around.
Yeah, and a little more on the last game. You look at it was really great for the Marlins. Then the 8th inning happened with Huascar Brazoban. Pete, talk to us there, seeing Brazoban give up 5 earned runs in that 8th inning and practically lose the game for the Marlins.
Yeah, it was not pretty from Brazoban, was it? But to be fair, there hasn't been any of that from Brazoban. Since he's kind of got over these visa issues that were kind of plaguing him and meant he started late. So he's been solid, to be honest. I mean, he's pitching there in the 8th inning. I mean, Skip managed this game like he wanted to win the series very badly. Like, Beozo's cruising along, 5 innings, 70-something pitches, turns to the bullpen. That says to me, Skip Schumacher's bringing in his best guys to get this win. And Brazoban going in the 8th shows to me he trusts Brazoban. Happy to give him the 8th. We know the drill. It can go sideways. These things happen, I guess, right, with these outings. So it's disappointing because I just, like 5 minutes earlier on Twitter, just kind of lit up the Royals saying, listen, they're talentless and the Marlins are gonna take this series. And of course, the usual Pete Pratt, reverse luck kicks in again, usual. So I'm going to start tweeting that the Marlins are never going to win again and we'll be fine. That's the solution. But yeah, disappointed for Brazoban. What I must say though, like on the bullpen, just more generally, is we know Tanner Scott and we know what he is, and he's just an absolute killer at the moment, and it's been great to see. But for me as well, the other sneaky one, like Andrew Nardi, just rediscovering himself from what was a terrible start to the year for Nardi. He had a specialist role last year of, putting fires out. And this year, to start the year, all he could do was douse more fuel on the fire, to be honest with you. But it's great to see Nardi getting back to himself. The pen itself, I think, is just as the year's gone on, found its groove a little bit more. So for me, that stands out. Nardi, again, I think the Marlins are going to be active at the deadline. Relievers are always, one of the areas you look to make some moves. I'm interested how many of these relievers are still going to be here after the deadline. But, I think Brazoban probably will be, just to kind of round him off. But disappointing to end the series. Well, it would be nice to get 3 series on the spin against 3 effectively competing teams this year when the Marlins are so far out of it with 0 rotation. I mean, for me, you have to look at the players and continue to applaud them that they haven't checked out. Skip hasn't checked out. I know the fans maybe have slightly checked out, and everyone's been, to be honest with you, the Florida Panthers, in some ways, have bailed out Peter Bendix this year. They've taken the focus away from the Marlins being this bad. Peter Bendix has been saved in some ways by the Florida Panthers having their success, and it's distracted everyone, which is great for everyone. Why aren't I? This is the reason the Panthers are so great. I'm not a fan of the Panthers, and this is it. So, if for all Panthers fans out there, if you see me with a Panthers jersey, things are about to go sour quickly.
Yeah. Just a very quick look at this. We included, because our stream last time was on the day of Game 7, the finale of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Almost everybody went with the Panthers and stayed optimistic and picked up a point, at least for that. Every single person except for our intern Nate, he was shut out between picking the Royals and picking the Panthers to win. Yeah, it was awesome. And Pete, I'm not any more of a hockey fan than you are, and not any more of a Panthers fan than you are, but the especially for being the first championship in that franchise's history, one that's been around for just as long as the Marlins have. Mm-hmm. That was awesome, and that will hold people over. You're absolutely right that there are plenty of people that are fans of both, or some that were much more fans of the Marlins than the Panthers, and yet some that could shift. Their priorities could shift a little bit because of it, which does provide some cover, a little bit of cover for this first half of the season.
Yeah, should be good. Don't forget parade on Sunday. Fort Lauderdale, go to it. Always fun to go to a championship parade. Before we get to Kevin, Eli, going back to the roster picture that you had there, I wanted to ask you there, because looking at the starting pitching, there's one name that's still there from opening day. Might not be the same pitcher from his all-star season, but the best ability is availability. And Trevor Rogers has definitely shown that, at least for this season. Before we get to Kevin, talk to us about Trevor just being the last man standing on that opening day rotation.
It's quite surprising. It was just, there were at points very discouraging moments during especially the first quarter of the season. That game against the Oakland A's is still burned sharply in my mind. For one, because it was right after the Arise trade, and also because it was just hard to explain how you could be that bad against a team that was should have been just as non-competitive as the Marlins. But hearing Skip say that was like a turning point for Trevor. Since that blow up against the A's, he's been a very good mid-rotation starter type. The strikeouts are still not there. The velocity still isn't really close to what it used to be, but like he's made adjustments. His changeup is still, when placed correctly, it is a really awesome pitch. It was the key to him being an all-star back in the day. And it's still the key now for him to get a lot of soft contact and keep the ball on the ground the way that he hasn't before. The fact that he's been as efficient is really surprising. The fact for him to be going, most recently, he went 7 innings in a single game. I did not think we'd ever see that again, because he didn't really even do that very much as a rookie. For him to find ways to get quicker outs has been really a very positive turn. And it's for a team in this position. Now the question is, have things turned so much that he is now going to be coveted by buying teams at the trade deadline a month from now? If he keeps this up, he's going to be desirable, and he's going to have some surplus value. And as desperate as the Marlins are just to get through this season, would they be tempted to, I guess, sell high relative to where his stock was in the offseason? But yeah, I'm still a little bit nervous just because he is still very reliant on pitching to contact. So we'll see how it goes start by start right here. I think it's likely that he stays put, but we got into it on the last Fish Unfiltered episode. Aram Layden, for one, was saying, as a guy that does a overview of the whole league, he's saying there's really not that many other starters on selling teams that are available that are better than Trevor at this deadline. That is how barren this market is of pitching talent right now, of the teams that are obviously out of the race. So he's in a very fascinating position, but obviously it's been a very pleasant turn of events since compared to where he was early in the year.
Yeah, and from that, let's go ahead and talk to our man on the ground, Mr. Kevin Barral, who is at Citizens Bank covering the entire 4-game slate this series, as we bring in Mr. Kevin. Kevin, talk to us. You got boots on the ground. You're in Philly. How are you feeling talk to us.
Yeah, it's feeling good, pretty good up here. A lot of fans already. Apparently, it's going to be a sellout today and tomorrow, from what someone mentioned, because of a firework night. So, yeah, should be fun. And tough 4-game stretch for the Marlins coming up with, Wheeler, Nola, Ranger Suarez, and I'm missing another name that's really good. But, yeah.
Christopher Sanchez.
Yeah,
Who just needs an
recently
extension.
extended. Yeah.
So, Kevin, talk to us what you see from the Marlins side. What Skip maybe mentioned to you, what he talked to you about, and the injury report also, because there are some key notes that we found out earlier today.
Well, yeah, with Sandy, quickly with the injury update, intensifying the throwing program. So definitely something coming up soon with that. That's the first time we've heard of that one. Aside from that, 6 through bullpen, he should be throwing one pretty soon during the weekend. Ryan Weathers finally get the first one there. He'll be evaluated in a couple days. And then Edward, closer and closer to coming back. He's pitching in Jacksonville, 5 innings. Brax is rehabbing, hoeing another one, 3 innings this time around, not 4, but still keeping the versatility of potentially starting games. So yeah, a lot in that injury report, but nothing really new.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about what they're doing with Hoenn right here to make this such a long rehab assignment. There's not like an obvious place for him, but in light of how Brazoban pitched last night and just like his general is sometimes sketchy control, I wonder if that's the spot that Hoenn slides into as a reliever. But because he's still a couple outings, if they're going to stretch him out as a starter, that would take several more weeks at this point. So I don't think that's what they're doing here. I guess I have no idea. But if things go well for him this coming Saturday, I wouldn't be surprised if he rejoins the team in Miami for the next homestand. That's my hunch right there. Yeah, it is exciting with Sandy intensifying his throwing program. Right? Yeah, there's 3 months until the end of the season. Well, we'll see. It's highly unusual for Tommy John guys to come back within the calendar year to appear in a game. But it would, I imagine he's going to be pitching off of mounds by the end of the regular season if things progress. So at least it'll look like
it's not really worth it for him to go out there on a major league game, and there's not much you're playing for, but you could do it.
At the same time, it's if you are recovering fully in the process, if you just happen to be one of these, as Peter would call him, the ultimate stud, if you just recover and strengthen your arm and go through this process faster than other people, there's also no reason to intentionally slow it down. But anyway, that's a good step. Good that it seems that his progress has been clear throughout this whole process right here. And with Edward, I mentioned it on Twitter that his return date is he's potentially eligible to come back on July 7th, a week after this upcoming start. So if things go well, then I think there's a good chance that as soon as he's eligible to come off that 60-day IL, he does, and he rejoins the mix right here in favor of, whoever the weak link of this current rotation might be.
Couple options.
Yeah.
Kevin, you're there again with the Marlins side. What are you seeing from Philly? Because they're throwing out their 4 best pitchers, and it's going to be very difficult for the Marlins to try to scrape at least one win with them throwing out their best 4 pitchers. What are you seeing from there? And how do you believe the Marlins are going to prepare? Maybe Skip mentioned going up against these 4 guys.
Yeah, Skip spoke very highly of all of them, especially Zach Wheeler, who, if you guys remember, the Marlins were able to get to him last time in Miami. So we'll see what happens this time around. But yeah, spoke very highly about all of them. Said that it's by far one of the best teams in the lineup 1 through 9 as well. They could all hit. So this is by far one of the toughest opponents the Marlins will face, and it's a Phillies team that has been by far the best in baseball in the last couple of weeks, and I think this month as well.
Yeah, everyone's just been hitting the baseball as well. Kyle Schwarber, Brandon Marsh, Bryce Harper. Kevin, again, you're seeing these 4 guys here. I don't know what you did to deserve to see these 4 guys pitch. But talk to us, these 4 guys, anyone that you're really looking at, because again, it's really difficult with these 4. Is it just Trevor, or how do you believe the Marlins pitching rotation will handle themselves against Philly? Because it's a lot of offense in that part.
Yeah, I don't think any of these guys have faced them this year. I don't think any of them were in the rotation, besides Trevor, obviously. But Kyle Tyler was all right. Rodri Munoz struggled in Kansas. Yoni looked really good. I spoke to Yoni a little bit today. It's really a lot of work in the repertoire for him to get it going. But Chirinos has experience, so it's probably your best bet to get a win probably tonight too with Trevor.
Yeah.
And the Phillies, especially, they not only the best record in baseball, they have the best record at home among all teams in the majors this season. They are. Who are they missing? They're kind of depleted. JT, JT Realmuto. Right. He had his knee surgery, and so he's still out, but he's going to return this year. But this, I guess, is the 1 year where they're well suited to overcome that. They are pretty tough right here. As I mentioned, before we got on, I mentioned that Munoz has had so much trouble keeping the ball in the ballpark, and he's one of the major league leaders in allowing home runs. So this will be, I don't know, the signs are not in his favor in terms of facing this particular lineup and the lefties that they have in there at the very top and the damage that they can do. Yeah.
They're missing Spencer Turnbull and Taijuan Walker. I guess Taijuan Walker's not having the best season, but Spencer Turnbull, I believe, has a 2.6 ERA, so something there. But Kevin, what were you going to mention maybe about the Phillies or the Marlins before we let you go?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy for Munoz. Just looking at BP, some balls that are fly balls at Lone Depot Park are definitely on their way out, so it won't be easy. And Skip kind of mentioned it. This atmosphere here at Citizens Bank is absolutely wild, and they're projecting what is a sellout today and tomorrow, at least close to. I mean, it's not going to be easy for them. And we spoke to Kyle Tyler today, who's tomorrow's starter, and he said just got to keep it locked in, and really just if you succeed at this ballpark, it'll be pretty quiet. So that's what he's hoping for tomorrow. And this is an amazing ballpark, and it's cool.
Is it your first time, Kevin, at Citizens Bank?
No, I've been here as a fan a couple times, but obviously the media aspect of it is pretty different. And we'll see how it goes.
All right. Before we let you go, Kevin, let's do the flip fish, Eli. Let's see if Kevin and Peter, myself, can get this right before we head into a break.
I think this one is relatively difficult overall, just not for this particular group. I think this group will do pretty well. Kevin will do well. And with Peter, this is a player that was certainly within his era of Marlins fandom. So due to the recency of this one, maybe you guys will be able to figure it out. So former Marlins and Phillies position player, played several different positions, including the outfield, right-handed swinger. Overall, his career unaccomplished overall, sub-replacement level, only a couple home runs. And this year, this is an active player, which is what makes it a little bit different than ones we usually do. He is a pre-ARB active player who this season has gotten very limited playing time in the big leagues. But soak it in. We'll do the reveal on the other side and then get through the rest of our show here on FOF Live. So please stick with us.
We have been representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please, give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
Relatively hard for the normal person, but really recent one. Just debuted in 2021, still active right now. Used to play for the Marlins and Phillies. Is no longer on those teams.
Kevin, come on.
I got it.
Light went off with Kevin. Is there any chance, Peter, that you could steal this from him?
It's my boy.
I'm struggling with this one.
Flowing blonde hair, beautiful man.
It's Luke Williams.
Luke Williams, yeah. Nailed it.
Boy.
Unbelievable hair.
How many games did he play with the Marlins? 50, 60?
Right around that number. He played a little bit more with the Marlins than the Phillies. It was 58 with the Phillies and 71 with the Marlins. He had one home run for each of them. That's his career total, one each. So with the Marlins in 2022, for anybody that doesn't remember, played left field, third base, second base, a tiny bit of first base, all over. Not a good
That's a
player,
stud.
but
That's a stud.
yeah, not good in the traditional sense, but memorable. And we appreciate him for just being a nice clubhouse presence and very cooperative on our side of things. We wish him the best of luck. He's in Atlanta.
Still in the
The worst fate for a major league player is to be a bench player on the Atlanta Braves because you cannot get off the bench.
It's okay.
Unfortunately.
You'll get a free World Series ring. So
Hey, you're getting paid major league money to watch the Braves play baseball. There are worse things. There are worse things to be. But Kevin, enjoy yourself. This is 4 games. It's going to be incredible. You're going to see great pitching from at least the Phillies side. I don't know too much about the Marlins, but enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy the media side. And again, you can always check out Kevin on Twitter.
I can't wait to watch Kyle Tyler pitch tomorrow. I'm pumped.
Oh my God.
Alrighty, guys.
Sicko.
Oh, I just got an idea of something I want to talk with Peter briefly about. As out of market Marlins observers, for the longest time, there's been this frustration that other teams through MLB.TV get live pregame and postgame stuff included in their streams. And just this past week, it was brought to my attention that offering this as well through Bally Sports Florida. I think you're probably on the same page as me that this is appreciated, but probably a little bit tardy in terms of actually how valuable this may have been in competitive circumstances to get this. But nonetheless, your thoughts about how now MLB.TV is expanding that element of it. As we speak right now, this pregame is starting up and having a little bit more content that we can enjoy from afar.
Yeah, for sure. I always found it like super frustrating that, the game's about to start and you've got, MLB TV saying game will start soon. And it just felt like a missed opportunity. I was like, why don't they show the local broadcasters pre and post? Equally as well, I love Craig Minervini, by the way. And so like any more Craig Minervini type content for me, I'm all in on, no doubt. So I don't feel like I've had enough Craig Minervini in my life. Maybe, you guys are probably a little bit more used to him than me, but yeah, for me, this is going to enhance my viewing experience, like to at least have the post-game stuff, the pressers, like actually kind of blend into that. And the analysis is going to be great, no doubt. So feels like a win in a lost year. So let's hope they continue with this for 2025 when the Marlins are back to being competitive. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if I plan to do like a deeper research on this. It does seem to me that a disproportionate percentage of the Marlins fan base is out of market, or at least the ones that are still engaged with this team in some way. So I think this was overdue to serve those people in some way. And yes, it is helpful to me as somebody that has reporters pregame and postgame to hear what my guys are asking in those press conferences. They usually record their stuff for transparency and upload it later. But I like to keep an eye on them and the work they're doing from far. So that's just one element of it. But there's also a lot of content that's included in those pregame and postgame shows that don't get uploaded to social media. And that's sometimes interesting. And sometimes it allows me to create extra GIFs out of items that is very important to me and to our super subs so that they can use those GIFs of silly moments and reactions. So yeah, the more content, the better.
I'm with you. Just to go back, like if I think the COVID years when the virtual Zoom room was on and happening, right? That used to be immense because, you'd have, not only would you be live and present, which was amazing for me personally, geographically, but everything's recorded. Everything's then made available to you after, so you can go back, review, clip what you need. And, I found that so useful. That's one thing for me. I don't see any of the pre-game skip pressers anywhere pretty much in terms of like content or coverage anymore. Like that just is not in my world at all. No one's posting that type of stuff on Twitter or anything. And there used to be so much in those pre-games of Don Mattingly that you'd really get into that was like super insightful. And so for me, like I've really missed out. Post-game's covered, and obviously they post all skip stuff and various interviews of the players, normally after a blown save or a crappy start, whatever it might be this year. But pre-game is just like, it just doesn't exist content-wise, which is frustrating. So yeah, it's a great call out that, Eli, that getting to see that, I think, is super valuable, particularly for us where we're creating content around what's happening with the team. And often it's off the field where things are more exciting than maybe on the field. And so these quotes, these nuggets, super insightful. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I remember those days, Peter. I was there with you, there talking to Donnie. Donnie would always shout you out. Donnie always made sure that you always had to get in a question there. So
he loved it.
Let's go ahead and some more questions. Eli, you wanted to do a quick questionnaire with Peter. That is the halfway mark of the season. We're going to be doing a little article asking everyone on staff these questions. So Eli, we have the time. Let's get it popping with Mr. Pete.
Yeah, let's see if I got this set up correctly. Or this is the form that I'm having my staffers fill out, but in real time, just like this, to give you a sample, a quick 5-question survey right here about starting with Marlins. I think you're included in this. We didn't think they'd be quite this bad. What is it compared that has led this season to go so awry relative to our expectations entering opening day, do you think?
The even worse. Again, I mean, the main root cause just for me had to be the starting pitching, particularly at the start of the year. That just like, and whatever it was, 13 start, and those injuries kicked in and there was panic or something was going on. Like people, it just, that start was just crazy. And it just threw everything off. And as soon as they were 0-13, was it even 0-13? It feels so long ago, but
only 0-9. Only
0-9 was it? Was it 1-13? I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like those injuries coming like right at the back end of spring, just it felt like it threw things off. And the next thing is the bullpen's impacted. The starters couldn't get going. Everyone's in a panic mode. They lose a couple of games, close games. The bullpen blew a few early. And that was the root cause. Those injuries did hurt it. And you have to look at the 60-day IL now and the 15-day IL, and it's like one of the best rotations you've ever seen. But the funny thing is these guys are competing right now, so that's super encouraging. But yeah, why they're worse? Unfortunately, the pitching was hurt more than expected, and they struggled to kind of get out the blocks, I think. So that's going to be my root cause for it anyway. The defense was absolutely putrid at exactly the same time as well, by the way.
Ooh, yes.
Those went hand in hand. But yeah, I think the offense is as expected, to be frank. I think I don't think it's been an underperforming offense. I think it's as expected.
So for number 2, on the bright side, which Marlins player has been the most pleasant surprise so far this season? You cannot go too far on recency bias and say Beozo. He's not eligible for this one. Anybody else that you would consider in that category of most pleasant surprise?
No doubt. He would be the ace on half of Major League Baseball teams to start the year, and it's Ryan Weathers. Absolute stud. For me, I've absolutely loved Weathers, and I loved this story of, getting a guy into the organization and working with him and, refining his game. And a change of scenery helped, I think, as well. So, yeah, for me, Ryan Weathers, TP calling out Otto Lopez, I think, for sure as well. If you can get a waiver dude in that can put up equivalent WAR to Luis Arias, I mean, feels like a win as well. So, yeah, for me, Ryan Weathers, there's definitely a few others too. I mean, it's that kind of year for the Marlins, right? Like Declan Cronin, you got in there too. Like the Marlins are picking up scrap heap guys, and a few of them are kind of popping off and delivering some value. So that's probably a long list, but for me, Ryan Weathers is the one that stands out.
Yeah, I am going with Weathers as well on that one. For number 3, excluding the pending free agents, the obvious rentals like Tanner and Josh Bell and God willing, Tim Anderson. But aside from them, which Marlin do you think is most likely to get dealt by the trade deadline?
Yeah, this is a good one. If Luzardo wasn't hurt, I think Luzardo, going back to the point you made about with the RMAs, there's just no pitching available and so many teams are in it. And the value, I think, of Luzardo would have really spiked, I think, but that's clearly now cooked. But I think you have to look at the pitching. Offensive-wise, are they going to move Jazz at this point? Maybe, but I think the biggest value they're going to get is one of the arms. Has to be. Is someone going to take a flyer on Eddie Cabrera? Maybe. Is someone going to buy the uptick right now with Trevor Rogers? Maybe. So I'm going to go Eddie Cabrera, actually, because they've tried to move him already. Like that.
Like it.
there's history there. Skip can't stand him, I don't think. Not quite to the levels of Sixto, but I think it's pretty clear that Skip is frustrated with Eddie, so I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, and Cabrera, if he stays on this track, potentially 4 starts between now and the deadline to reestablish himself. So yeah, we'll see. That's a possibility. So 2 more for you right here. When I record this, there's 9. At this moment, there are now of the National League teams right now that are outside of the playoff picture at the moment. Which of those do you have most confidence in turning things around and staking a playoff spot out of all the ones that are not currently holding one of those spots?
Well, the Mets have been scorching for some time. So, the Mets are going to be interesting. I had them down as completely blowing it up a few weeks ago, like pre-London. Like, it feels like London's kind of just like, I think they came in slightly hot into London, but it feels like the Mets are just on fire at this point. So maybe the Mets buyers? Maybe they are. So, I look at the other clubs in and around like this segment. I don't believe in the Pirates. I don't believe in the Giants. I don't believe in the Nats, the Reds. I don't believe in any of them. I think, to be honest with you, the Diamondbacks and the Mets are the most obvious. So I'm going to go with the Mets just to keep it rolling. And I think it'd be a crazy story that finally the most expensive roster in the history of the game turns it all around and gets in.
And finally, because the spirit of this roundtable that we're doing is because tonight is going to mark the end of the first half of the schedule, that pick your Marlins MVP for the second half, for the remaining 81 games.
Oh, yeah, that is tricky. Probably most of the good guys are going to be gone, so that adds the trickiness here. Do you know what? I'm going to go with Rodri Munoz as my second half MVP.
He cuts off.
He's not going to be moved. I don't think anyone's going to buy him. I just wonder if all of a sudden he can just stop serving up those IKEA specials, and all of a sudden I think you got a real pitcher on your hands. Like, the stuff is incredible with Munoz. So if he's healthy, he'll have the opportunity. He won't be moved. Limit the meatballs, and Rodri Munoz could be the guy. Jazz equally could be, by the way, as well, if he's still around too.
I like Nardi. I like
BG's angle right there, where Tanner is certainly going to be gone. So if Nardi stays, then he moves into that ultimate high leverage spot and potentially succeeds.
Yeah, great shout as well. I agree on that too. He could be gone as well, though. By the way, Nardi. There's no reason why he couldn't.
That is
his advanced numbers look great.
Yeah, Nardi has quietly, since a few weeks of struggles early on, he has very quietly been great for the balance of this season. And I think they're going to get some really compelling offers for him. But yeah, agreed. So that was fun. I remind people that tomorrow morning we'll post an article with our whole staff's takes on these same 5 questions. I've not filled it out myself. I am procrastinating, but we'll be ready by tomorrow for people to fill out, so they could get like 6 or 7 or 8 different takes on all those same subjects right there. But yeah, so I guess we can roll a little more closely into
lineups. Let's look at the
tonight's
lineup
stuff. Yes, for the series opener, we'll put Daniel back in his prime position right there. What side should we start on, Daniel?
Let's start on the good side. Let's start on the red side. Let's start with the good, and then we can talk about the bad. This is a team that loves to hit the baseball. Having Kyle Schwarber lead off, his numbers look incredible. It seems like Eli with this team, almost maybe 1 through 7, 1 through 6, have been quietly having pretty good seasons. Can really hit the ball. That 1 through 5 number is the one you really have to worry about with the Phillies, because it seems like any of those guys can get a hit at any moment, can get a home run. Very good players, all-star caliber players, MVP caliber players. Eli, when you're looking at this, Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bohm, Castellanos, then maybe towards the bottom you have Whit Merrifield, who can always get it going when he has the chance, and Christian Pache, who's burned the Marlins one time before with AJ Puck. Talk to us this lineup and how interesting it is compared to the Marlins.
Harper, most recently, he's the one that has been most dominant, and I felt that firsthand with him being on my fantasy team. He has been terrific. He's gunning for another MVP in his career. Everybody's chasing after Shohei, most likely in the National League, but he is doing his best to really close that gap. His power production has been awesome. It's right in line with some of the best of his career. at this point. You mentioned that you want to like segment off the top half of the roster, but I do want to shout out Edmundo Sosa, who was holding down the shortstop spot while Trey Turner was out for over a month. And he was doing incredibly, as is always the case when you have a role player overperforming. As soon as the regular guy gets back, that the role player is sometimes magically, the magic wears off and they come back down to earth. But overall, his numbers for the season are still really remarkable for considering his career prior to this point. It's hitting 275. It's an 826 OPS, a lot of extra base hits, way more than they could have thought. And he plays several different positions, including shortstop tonight. But beyond that, he can really move around anywhere. He is pretty high on the list of valuable utility guys in all of baseball, considering what he's done this year. And it's worth noting with Schwarber, as usual in his career, he has incredible numbers during the month of June. And these are his final few days of June to really soak that in. What stands out is that this year overall, hitting for more average than we've seen him in a while. He's hitting 250, which is an actual like compliments in this day and age. Like that is better than the league average for somebody that also has awesome power, who also draws a gazillion walks. You see the walk rate, 16.3%. His walk rate is like twice as high as anybody on the Marlins this season. And he also was just getting hits. And that has been, he was, I would say, near the top of the list of beneficiaries when they got rid of the shift. We don't even really think about that very much at all. But when the infield shift was here, it was guys, especially like Schwarber, who really lost out on a lot of singles, and he has reclaimed some of those. So he has made that contract look pretty good. 4 years, $80 million. And people would believe it. The Marlins were sniffing around Schwarber a little bit when he was a free agent, and ultimately didn't want to compete at that price. And I think all things considered, he's had a very successful Phillies tenure, and like this year has been right on par with each of his previous 2 years.
Yeah, just incredible there. And also how deep the Phillies are, because there's no Bryson Stott, there's no Brandon Marsh. So really a deep lineup, a deep roster that the Phillies do have. Let's go ahead from this side. I want to get Peter's thoughts on the other side. Lots of blue. We're getting Brian De La Cruz DHing again, Josh Bell first base, Jake Berger third. So a lot of the same there. With different ones, maybe towards the bottom. I'm not going to ask you about Ali Sanchez, Peter. We need to go deep dive into that. But looking at this lineup, what do you like? Or how do you feel some of these guys are in their position, and maybe how could they try to maybe get off today's with Wheeler and Nola and Sanchez and Ranger?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough series for the Fish, obviously. I mean, those four are tough. There's two lefties in there, so we'll chalk them up to automatic L's, the two lefties. And then the two righties are Nola and Wheeler. So, man, oh, man, this is going to be a big test. To be honest with you, considering the guys that are on the roster, I look at the way the lineup is constructed. I like the balance. I've liked the balance ever since Jazz went back to the top, to be honest with you. Jazz came alive in that role. He suits that role. He's leading the club at this point in terms of walks and walk percentage and sprint speed, and just everything starts with Jazz, and he's in the right spot there. I love Jesus Sanchez hitting cleanup as well. It's a perfect spot for him. You go and look at Jesus Sanchez's Savant page, and it blows you away, to be honest with you. It's super encouraging, Jesus Sanchez. I mean, it's not without flaw at times with him, but there's a player there. And there's an improving player, I think. Like, Jesus is moving forwards. Like, just think a couple of years ago, Jesus Sanchez was on the DFA bubble to not make the roster at one point. And so he's come a long way, to be honest with you. I think there's a bit of maturity mentally for Jesus Sanchez in that period. He's still a fun guy. But, listen, the Marlins, this is the talent they're working with, right? This lineup looks familiar. The actual lineup and the construction of this looks familiar against righties, Jazz at the top, they're sprinkling the lefties around. Like I mentioned, for me, Jake Berger's been the one that I've been just disappointed with, more disappointed than most. Like, Tim Anderson was a lottery ticket anyway. We were hoping we'd see old Tim back. It hasn't really happened. He has had a little bit of a resurgence since that bereavement stint a few weeks back, but it's super empty as well with Tim Anderson, right? I think that was the other thing I went and looked. I was like, okay, he's hitting 313. I was like, okay, what's his OBP?
313.
It's like,
What's the slugging
okay.
percentage? 313.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh man, like it's the emptiest 313 in the history of 313. So, I let's see whether there's anything for Tim Anderson. But the Marlins are going to be up against it big time this series, no doubt. I mean, but what we have seen is they'll keep scratching away. But when you look at the walk percentages, I think that's the thing, right? The severe blue heavily up and down this lineup for the walks. The K's equally as well as and these are all poor indicators here for the Marlins. Like they strike out too much and they don't walk enough. And yeah, it's going to be a tough ask this series.
Yeah, I'll say quickly on Dane. Agree or disagree, but they've just been very strictly platooning him, where he's only in there against lefties, and as we've seen from the team overall, that hasn't really worked. The team is still losing against every single lefty they face. So that means he'll be in the lineup tomorrow against Christopher Sanchez. He'll be in there on Sunday against Ranger Suarez. So it's an awful situation for him. They faced overall 3 lefties this week, and they're 3 of the best pitchers in baseball. It's Cole Reagans. It's going to be Christopher Sanchez having his breakout year, and Ranger Suarez, who's been the most dominant of all of them. And those are the only days that Dane Myers gets in the lineup. So it's inconsistent playing time, and it happens to be against incredible quality of competition. Yeah, that's something to. I don't think it's about trying to trade Nick Gordon. I feel like that ship has kind of sailed. He just, as we've touched on, he's good one day a week, and he's not even. Unfortunately, they're facing a lefty on Sunday, so he's not even going to be in the starting lineup on Sunday. But I guess that guarantees that at some point later in the game he'll come off the bench to pinch hit and have some sort of positive impact right there. It is something that I guess we'll talk. Not enough time to really get deep in the weeds on Dane Myers soon, but it has been, unfortunate that he's been in this very strict platoon during a stretch where they really haven't faced very many easy lefties, and so he hasn't really performed well even when he's gotten those opportunities.
Yeah,
Eli, one quick one on that. What was your take in, like, because I've been thinking about this too. Like Dane is in the short side platoon situation there. Again, we haven't got a ton of time here, but I found it some way surprising that in this last year, when you got to pay Avisel Garcia the dough anyway, like, why not just plonk Avi there and let him play the short side platoon and let Dane go and play every day in AAA at this point? Like, I don't think this really helps Dane, frankly. And if they needed a warm body, Avi could have been that body. Seemingly in the clubhouse, like, they were happy with Avi Garcia. Skip spoke really highly of him. So whilst the Marlins fan base were keen to see him gone, I'm not sure it's actually helping anyone that he has gone, because Dane's the one that's kind of being hung out to dry a touch. So I don't know. What was your take on that?
It's right. Because it is essentially the same role that Avi was playing, and the same one that, I mean, they've been very comparable in terms of performance in that role. They've both struggled equally. It's also, I think, a big factor here is that Dane just has nothing else to really do in the minors. He's 28 years old. He's at this point, it is kind of a sink or swim situation. And even though he is a talented guy and he has really strong athletic measurables in terms of his tools that get you interested, he's not a top prospect. He's not somebody that you would objectively evaluate and say that he's going to be an everyday player anyway. I think the most likely outcome for him is a long-term part-time guy that sees an increase of playing time when you absolutely need him to anyway. But that being said, for somebody, he's still at the start of his big league career. And usually guys at the start of their career at least get some sort of leash to play regularly to show that they can do it. Yeah. And so clearly, like, this role he's in right now isn't suiting him very well. I do not think keeping Avi around would be an answer, though. It was just it was so clear that things were not going to get better. And even if he was not a clubhouse issue, I don't think he was considered a clubhouse leader or somebody that would offer any sort of really impactful guidance to the young guys. We've seen there are other examples of guys that really have truly exemplary like leadership ability, like Martin Prado. He stuck around 2 years longer than he needed to just because people thought he really was that transcendent sort of voice in the clubhouse. But I don't think Avi was on that level. At some point you'd like to see them open up some more regular playing time for him. But either way, it's really tough overall. So We'll see. We'll see if he. It's an important weekend for him. Unfortunately, it's just the talents that he's going up against on the left side just could not be any more intimidating.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think with that, Eli, is a perfect time head into predictions. And with this one, we could go a little longer. Give maybe some good takes and actual takes with this prediction, as it is 4 games. So don't forget, Eli. Let's get that video.
This is prediction time.
I don't want to like toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
Prediction time. So as usual, a quick look at our leaderboard right here with Daniel on top by just a single point. I mentioned previously, it's a very high scoring previous series because we included the Panthers in there as well. Outside of that, it's a big drop off to get to the rest of our staff. Our super subs are in the middle. As usual, we remind you to consider becoming a super sub to make series predictions with us all season long, among many other perks being on our site, including the game notes, including the ad-free browsing experience right here. But yeah, this is the current state of affairs right here. And almost everybody got it right. I think that was on Daniel's side, but almost everybody got it right when it came to the Royals taking 2 out of 3. Kansas City. I didn't have time to take a snapshot of the super sub predictions this time around, but almost everybody had the Phillies so far winning this 4-game set, with one exception. One of our super subs, Alec had it as a series split down the middle. Through the years, I've been pretty consistent that when it's an even number of games, no matter how big the talent disparity, it almost always ends in the split. This would just seem to be an exception to that, considering how far apart these teams are. I didn't even get a chance to throw this in really quick, but we're halfway through the season, and look at this, a 25 game gap between these two in the standings. I just found this picture, was taken yesterday in Kansas City, of Nick Fortes, and has excellent meme potential. I'm sure you'll be seeing it again as the season goes on right here. But this would seem to be an exception on the road against a team that is 25 games better than you, that it would be understandable if these teams did not split the series and if the better team took it, especially with the starting pitching the way that it is lined up right here. But yeah, without further ado, we can hop into the predictions themselves. Let me just get this music going. There we go.
All right, leading us off, he's not here with Kevin, so I will be doing the leading off work. So for mine, I think the Phillies sweep the Marlins. The Marlins aren't going to be able to top these 4 pitchers. They give me 4 aces on the Marlins pitching staff right now. And my MVP, I'm going to go with Alec Bohm, who's having a sneaky great season. I believe he's second on the team in OPS. He'll have 2 home runs this series. Eli.
As I alluded to, I have the Phillies winning this series despite it being an even number of games. Phillies taking 3 out of 4 in Philly from the Marlins right here. With series MVP, I will go with Trey Turner as well, especially when you go against a subpar defense. He can create hits out of anything that he puts into play. And given the state of the Marlins rotation right now, I think he's going to get a ton of balls in play, a ton of base hits, especially in crucial moments. So Phillies 3 out of 4, Trey Turner MVP honors.
Last and certainly not least, Peter, give it to us all out. What is your prediction and MVP?
Guys, the brooms are out. There will be a broom. There will be a sweep. The Marlins are sweeping the Phillies. Let's go. Marlins are sweeping them. We're going to come in there. We're going to bounce some. Jazz is going to have 8 stolen bags in this series. I'm going to be the MVP. Let's go, Jazz. Let's go, Marlins.
Let me get the broom out for this. Where is my Billy the Marlins broom gift right here?
There we go.
Yeah,
Can you imagine the scenes?
That would be quite. That throw everything into chaos right here. I had to play Kevin's prediction time video. It's a quick one, so we'll squeeze that in right here at the end from the field at Citizens Bank Park.
Alrighty, here in beautiful Citizens Bank Park, Marlins and Phillies, 4-game set. I'm going to say that the Phillies will take 3 out of 4, and Bryce Harper will be my series MVP. Back to you, Eli.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Really good point from Eli. He always makes really good points.
Oh, we got to raise the volume.
Good point from Eli. He always makes really good points. This is a really good point from Eli.
Yeah, we have a few Peter sound bites in our
Beautiful.
soundboard that I wish I could play a little bit more often right here. But yeah.
That's gonna do it. Always enjoy having you on, Peter. For myself, Daniel, Eli, Kevin, all the way in Philadelphia. Peter, go enjoy this series. Go enjoy the Euros. Go England. It's coming home. It's coming home. This is FOF Live, presented by Berger and Hicks.